He's a big fella, but it's pancake flat as well. So, you know, the fact that he's a big guy, it's aerodynamically he's obviously pretty good.
That's Gero, Saturday morning, Hendry's bunch ride, leading them out, heading down towards the ocean. Get on if you're good enough.
Yeah.
No, not quite. Not quite.
Roads are a bit damp through there, which won't be a bother because it's dead straight, so that's good. But it has been a bit of rain overnight, early this morning.
Yeah, it was forecast some showers to pass through, but it does look like it's clearing. So not an overly technical TT, with the exception of the opening few kilometres.
Hang on, take a look at these kilometres in front of Max Velscheid. How much will Filippo Ganna love that?
Oh.
Probably as much as Max Velscheid is loving it right now as well, as a big guy able to put out 500-watt seated power.
This is back with Bryce Pedersen. You spoke about Jonathan Milan and where he is at Macca. Simone Consoni has moments ago rolled down the ramp. Normally, Consoni is the lead-out rider for Jonathan Milan, and they've got a great relationship that's gone back many years on the velodrome as well. But Velscheid has been trying to do that lead-out because he's much closer in size to Jonathan Milan. In fact, he's one of the few riders in the race who is bigger than Jonathan Milan. But he hasn't been able to get it right. Consoni can get it right, but he's so much shorter than Jonathan Milan, so it doesn't get as much of a sit.
Yeah, and there's some riders, as we know, sprinters specifically I'm talking about. Some sprinters can just jump from wheel to wheel, from team to team, and they can do it on their own per se. Other riders really do need that real structured lead-out train, and they need a rider dropping them, you know, at least off at 500 to go, and then they can maybe box a little bit. So Milan is maybe one of those.
Malucelli has been on course for 7 minutes, and he's been caught by his 1 minute man. What does that do to your morale?
Well, I'll tell you what, outside of that, he doesn't want to go much slower because I know the time cuts are bigger on time trials, but you've got to be careful also on days like today. Yeah, that's very early on.
Yeah, if you put in a poor performance in an individual time trial, you're watching with bated breath the GC favourites and the absolute time trial specialists, because it's only when they cross the finish line or the stage winner crosses the finish line that you know what the time delay is going to be. So if you're loitering or if you're tethering on that time delay cusp, it can be pretty nerve-wracking to watch the final riders.
Okay, put yourself in the team car for Bardiani. What's your advice now to Malucelli?
Yeah, up the tempo. I can say this because on a very small stage race, I got eliminated in a TT. I wasn't even aware, obviously. I finished, rode back to the hotel. The team director, who was Sean Yates at the time, came back. It was
who was
in his time one of the world's best. Yeah, thanks, Pat. One of the best time trialists. And he said, "You're out. Pack your bags. You're going home." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "You've missed the cut." Next rider.
The big recruit for the Unibet Rose Rockets team, Dylan Groenewegen, now is down the ramp, and he's a man who will just be managing the effort to get through and not get eliminated, Macca. He's a big chance to win the stage on Sunday into Milan. He hasn't won yet, Gero, but how impressed have you been by Groenewegen and his team in the first week?
Well, Groenewegen specifically hasn't won, but I think Dylan Groenewegen and the Unibet Rose Rockets team have won a lot of fans already in this Giro d'Italia. They are doing a great job as a team. We're talking about the lead-out train of Lidl Trek not being quite right. Unibet Rose Rockets, as a team racing at this level for the very first time, have been nailing their lead-outs.
Yeah.
They've really been putting Groenewegen in a fantastic position in the final. They've had a couple really slip through their fingers with some unfortunate instances inside the last 500 metres, but I don't think it's a matter of if, but when Dylan Groenewegen knocks off the stage here.
Yeah, I have watched those closely too. He was second on one stage, wasn't he? I thought he was going to win it, which would have been great. You know, it's always nice to see a new team stepping up to this level, get a victory. And I tend to agree, Simon, with you. I think their wins not too far around the corner.
Velscheid has made the turn at the top of the course. He's now going along the coastline, and I am just looking to see what information I can garner from those flags. It looks cross-tailwind.
Yeah, cross-tailwind, which makes for an extremely fast individual time trial.
How hard is it with the disc wheel, the aero bike, battling a cross-tailwind?
Well, a cross-tailwind's actually ideal. It's the best conditions to have a disc wheel in because it works a bit like a sail. You get pushed along with that disc wheel in the back with that slight tailwind. So Once they hit that coast road there, and they'll be soon going through that first intermediate time check, they will be flying along.
Bryce Peterson is now catching Arnie Levens. And this is a guy with high hopes for the individual time trial today, Bryce Peterson. When he won the Under-23 World Championship, second place was Luke Plapp at 10 seconds behind. Third was Florian Vermeesch. In fifth position was Mick Van Dijk. In sixth place, at 39 seconds behind, was Dan Hula, who won the corresponding time trial stage last year. So Bryce Peterson has got high hopes for the stage today. That Under-23 world title that he won, it was 30 kilometres long and his average speed was 52 k's per hour.
Hey, what we keep seeing is big patches of water across the road, so it's decent enough shower. So they're just trying to pick the driest bit and, of course, the smoothest part of the road, quickest way around this course, ideally.
He also finished third in the stage at Trino Adriatico against the clock in a similar region to this. That was last year. He was third. Filippo Ganna was the winner. Juan Ayuso was second. And on that occasion, he averaged 54 kilometres per hour. He was 27 seconds slower than Filippo Ganna. So Johan Bryce Peterson, along with Max Velschott, is certainly going to set the benchmark early. How's it in the former fish market? It's got Jonas Vingegaard written all over it, the old fishmonger.
Yeah, it certainly is. You feel at home today, riding along the coastline.
Oh, Max Velschott is chewing up the road. This is Blickra, who started 2 minutes ahead of him, and he's only been out on course for a little over 10 minutes. How good is that for the morale of Max Velschott?
Well, this is good, isn't it? It's good to have a carrot in front that you can see getting closer and closer, and now he'll look for the next one, I'd imagine.
Well, unfortunately for Velschott, he's only got one rider left to catch, and that was the first rider down the start ramp in Frank Vanderbroek. So he's enjoying catching these riders one by one. He's only got one more to catch. He'll be the first across the finish line.
And he's going to catch him soon. It will be after 16 kilometres that we'll get the first intermediate time check, and it will be Max Velschott who is the quickest. The big favourites are still to come, but the benchmark they're going to have to climb over, courtesy of Max, is going to be high.
Winner of 4 Emmy Awards. With an iconic cast and who's who of guest stars.
No more.
It's one of the most influential TV dramas of all time. Homicide, Life on the Street. Stream free on SBS On Demand.
Anytime is 7-Eleven time.
Technology, an over 1,000 kilometre range. Backed by an award-winning nationwide retailer network you can rely on. In the symmetrical all-wheel drive Subaru Forester, get ready to own the road and conquer the wild. It's you and Subaru for a world discovered. See you out there.
As a musician, there's nothing worse than getting sick and not being able to perform. So every year I make sure I get vaccinated against all the winter nasties. Viruses are always changing, so it's important to get regular vaccinations, especially if you're a bit older like me. I love meeting happy, healthy mob at my gigs, so talk to your doctor or health worker about getting your flu, COVID and RSV vaccinations today. Authorised by the Australian Government, Canberra.
Get $50 off batteries this tax time at Bunnings Trade. Trade in your old 18-volt battery in store and get $50 off select battery packs from Makita, DeWalt and AEG. T's and C's apply. Offer ends June 30 at Bunnings Trade.
How good's me time? Do moments to yourself exist as a mum, do they?
Bedtime is my me time.
I have a hiding spot when I lock my bathroom. Can't even go to the toilet in peace. I'll let you know if it ever happens.
How good's that? Big W.
How do we know Spud Light is the best all-round potato? It's fresh from the farm to your plate, ensuring the best tasting, naturally 25% less carb potato. Spud Light, light on carbs, right on taste.
With Ancestry DNA, I can explore deeper connections with the people and places from my past and discover more of my family story today.
There could be more to your story too. Piece it together with Ancestry DNA.
Stage 10 of the Giro d'Italia 42-kilometre individual time trial. We're now on board with the Irish national champion, Ryan Mullen. He's been doing a lot of work throughout the race to support Corbin Strong and Ethan Vernon in the challenge for stages to pick up a win amongst the sprinters. Simon Gerrans, even though he's wearing the colours as the Irish national champion, I get the impression that Ryan Mullen will be trying to turn this into a double rest day, at least active recovery today.
Well, active recovery day, but he must always get motivated when he pulls on his national champion TT skin suit, because he's won that title 7 times, in fact. So he's accustomed to time trialling well, to winning time trials. So I think just out of habit, he'd get on that TT bike and he'd want to push hard.
He's been pretty active throughout the race, Macca. We've seen a lot of him on the front supporting his teammates. He's a reliable guy to have on your squad.
Yeah, he is. Look, he's been great over a number of years playing that role, hasn't he? As a domestique and lieutenant for team captains, team leaders. But yeah, I'm with you, Simon. It's out of habit. You'd want to go for it, and sometimes you got to just, well, one, either follow team orders and make it an active recovery day because they're going to need him, obviously, as the race progresses, or they give you the green light and you get the go-ahead to have a real crack at it.
Max Velscheid is closing in on the rider that was the first down the ramp, and that is Frank van den Broek, who started 4 minutes ahead of him, or 3 minutes ahead of him, in fact. He's caught his 2 other riders that were in front of him, Max Velscheid. He's chewing up the road. Here's the comparison between Velscheid and Price Pedersen, and it is the Dane who is slightly ahead of the big German. This is going to be a super fast individual time trial. I can't wait to see the first intermediate checkpoint, which is after 16.7 kilometres, and then we'll be able to see the average speed and just how quickly they have been going. Perfect road surface along here for the Dane, who rides for the Alpecin Premier Tech team. The second rest day is over. The race of truth is on. It's the individual time trial. Hello and welcome to everybody in South Australia and the Northern Territory joining us for Stage 10. Matthew Keenan with you, once again joined by Simon Gerrans, and in the commentary box for the first time this year in the Giro d'Italia, David McKenzie. Macca, you've got your timing right. This is a crucial day in the race for Pink.
It is. It's a nice day to just slide into the comms box too. Beautiful part of the world. Of course, we're on the Tuscan coastline. Viareggio is the start, and then it finishes in Massa. So if you're wondering where that is on the map of Italy, it's around near the Cinque Terre. Of course, not too far away from Pisa either. So it is a lovely part of the world. It's this time of the year actually just starts to really warm up as well. It can get quite steamy. And they had a bit of an overnight shower, early morning shower. You can see some of the roads are a bit damp as well. So should dry up, though, as the day goes and be a pretty good day for a time trial.
Well, Price Pedersen, he has caught the rider who started 1 minute in front of him. He will probably not catch the rider who started 2 minutes in front of him, but he might catch the rider who started 3 minutes in front of him, because 2 minutes ahead of him is Max Velscheid, and these two are in a big fight right now.
It's like Pac-Man for these two guys at the moment, chopping up everyone in front of them. But you're right, fantastic battle between Price Pedersen and Velscheid, and they are tracking within a few seconds of one another. Nearly 15 minutes into their individual time trial. So I am looking forward to that first intermediate time check that comes after around 16 kilometres of racing.
Yeah, they're going to be a really good reference point. But the big favourite is Filippo Ganna, and he rolls down the ramp at 10:20 Australian Eastern Standard Time. Not too long after him will be Mikel Bial, followed by Remy Cavagna, and Alex Segard will be at 10:40 Australian Eastern Standard Time. So there's a block of 4 riders that go in pretty quick succession as well, who are amongst the favourites. Obviously, Filippo Ganna is the one who is the man to beat. Max has got the last one in his sights. Frank van den Broek was the first to start.
He's done a pretty good job, hasn't he? Big Max, he's handling this course all right. He's wrestling with the bike a little bit through the corners. Let's just watch him here. He was a little bit tentative through the last one, but there was a wet patch just before on the apex, so understandably you're going to be a little bit cautious with some wet tyres. But he handled that one no problems. Tries to go the inside line. Now he's in the lead.
And when he comes around this next bend, he should see the sign for the first intermediate time check within his sight. So this is going to be interesting to see how Velscheid tracks this intermediate time check, and then Price Peters afterwards.
Can't wait to see what the average speed is when he goes through the checkpoint. Tight right-hand corner. Not a lot of margin for error there. This is the checkpoint, Tudor. They are the timing sponsors at the Giro d'Italia. They've also got a team in the race. This is after 17 kilometres having been covered. And this is going to be quick by Max Walscheid. But how quick will it be in comparison to the other big favourites? He's chasing that motorbike. He's trying to maximise some drafting benefits. The average speed is 50.6 kilometres per hour, and I anticipate it will be quicker at the finish line.
Well, now he's gone through that first time check. He has a long run along the coastline. So now the road's really open up. It is not technical at all now for around the next 15 kilometres. So he's going to be able to really power through this section and really focus on his effort, maintaining a really fast speed.
This is Paul Magnier. He's been a winner of 2 stages already. The young Frenchman has been a delight to watch. He is starting at 10:18 Australian Eastern Standard Time. Back in the start house, and we are now on board with Big Johnny, Jonathan Milan, the teammate of Max Walscheid. And he's away. He is Olympic Games gold medalist in the team's pursuit, and he's a world record holder in the individual pursuit. That's over 4 kilometres. Is 42 kilometres too much for Jonathan Milan?
We'll find out, won't we? And again, I'll say it again. We'll know early on if he's up for it. Even just the body language, Simon, going down the ramp, looks like he's going to at least have a dig early on and maybe see to the first time check where he's tracking.
Yeah, the body language of Jonathan Milan shows or gives us every indication that he's going to have a bit of a crack here. We saw him power down that start ramp, and I was just thinking, I wonder if I've ever in my entire life in a max sprint put out that many watts, because he's a big fella and he came up to speed pretty quickly.
He did. Yeah, we'll watch him closely.
And now here comes Price Pedersen. Now this is the rider that was tracking at 5 seconds ahead of Max Walscheid with the live GPS tracking, and it's going to be very close to exactly that as he goes through the checkpoint. It is 7 seconds that he's up, and the average speed is almost 51 k's per hour.
Well, really strong start there for Price Pedersen. Fastest man on course so far, and I think with these two riders, we're going to see a fantastic battle all the way to the line.
Seems like their bikes are getting, I don't know if they're getting buffeted just a little bit. There's just little movements, or they're just, you know, again, sort of trying to steer clear of the bumps. It's a lot better, obviously, to pick the smoothest part of the road.
It looks like they've done some work on resurfacing the road. I'm sure that patch there that looked pristine was miserable a week ago.
Oh, yeah, it's the Giro are not bad at that. They whiz through. It's like a month before, or even, as you say, a week before, and do some patchwork on some of the roads. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if they fixed some of these up.
He is really fighting with it, and it's not a huge win, but at 55 kilometres per hour, and you're fully focused on the road in front, you can get caught by surprise. This is Max Walscheid. There are some tight corners. It's more technical than it looked on paper, but it is a pretty straightforward overall individual time trial once he gets onto this long stretch of road.
Yeah, it looks like it's the road that pretty much tracks along the coastline, but they obviously go through a few roundabouts and a few sort of back streets just a little bit to get off this coast road, and maybe there's some buildings or some infrastructure there that they have to work their way around, because it is predominantly in one direction, this individual time trial, heading in a northerly way.
Yeah, I'll be interested, really curious, as we all are, of course, one, to watch Ghana head down the ramp, but two, for a big guy, he's one of the most, I think, technically, you know, through tight corners for a big guy, he handles himself so well, Filippo. So the fact that we're watching a couple of big guys now, and they're doing a good job of it, but I'll be really keen to see Ghana early on at the start, especially in a couple of those corners, because they're pretty tight, and he won't leave any stone unturned, I'd imagine.
Stage 8, the first 2 hours, they averaged 52 kilometres per hour, and it was a slight headwind. And Filippo Ganna was off the front with Alberto Bettiol for most of it. Back to the start house. This is now Tim Turtenberger, who is about to roll down the ramp. Young German rider, important part of the lead-out train for Jonathan Milan. This highlights lead-out track as a team split in two between the sprinters and the GC contenders. The sprint train all on page 1 of the start list. They're the early starters. 10 seconds to go for Teutenberg. Eases his way down the ramp. Still adjusting his helmet strap. Could he be any more relaxed?
Stark contrast to what we've seen a couple of riders go down the start ramp, and in particular his teammate that we last watched go down there, Jonathan Milan. Tom Teutenberger there, very relaxed.
Very chilled. He's spends a bit of time out in Australia actually, and over the summer months he sort of parks up base in the city of Bendigo. He spends quite a bit of time there. He enjoys it. He's obviously raced out here as well for the last couple of years. He enjoyed his time. But you're right, very, very chilled start from Timmy.
Imagine the Bendigo bunch rides take off quicker than
that. Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
You would have been on plenty of those when you were younger.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, many years ago. But no, it's very popular.
Should Jonathan Milan go for it today or not?
That's the burning question, Matt. I thought that as he went down the ramp, I thought, should he actually be going for it? He's still hunting a stage win. Probably not. Probably not. I think in his case, the only reason you're going for it is if you truly believe you've got a chance of winning, which I don't think he does. He's won stages here before, obviously, but he's still hunting for one. So yeah, I'd say keep the powder dry.
Simon, you identified the pride of wearing the Irish national champions colours for Ryan Mullen. What do you make of his body language at this point in terms of his level of effort compared to what he's capable of?
Yeah, he's not all out, and I think Ryan Mullen on his day, or he's probably more a rider that you'd say he's great in a one-off time trial. Like we spoke about riders who are good at doing individual time trials in stage races, and then there's others that are just good at doing individual time trials as a one-day race. I think Ryan Mullen definitely falls into the category of doing an individual time trial as a one-day race, and he's shown that by winning his national title on so many occasions. So I think if you really, Ryan Mullen, it's prologues or opening time trials or individual time trials by themselves, not when it's amongst or halfway through a Grand Tour.
He's still got plenty of work to do for his team throughout this year's Giro d'Italia. He's one of the key workhorses, and he's one of the more experienced members of the NSN cycling team. They haven't had much luck so far, this squad.
It was on stage 2 where Ryan Mullen basically rode the front of the peloton nearly the entire duration of the stage, really trying to keep the breakaway in check, to set up an opportunity for Corbin Strong, who we'll see take off a little later on. But Ryan Mullen was so impressive on that day, but I also feel like he's probably still trying to recover from that day that was a week ago now, because he would have gone so deep, the amount of work he did.
It was a huge amount of work. And he'll be in the start house, but we might not get to see him. Jensen Plowright will be the next rider to start. Not sure whether you've had a chance to see him in action so far, Macca. He's been trying to get in breakaways. He's been active in sprint finishes. He's taken a step forward this season, Jensen Plowright.
Well, he was good at the Giro, was it last year as well? He just laid it all out there. He's had a good start to the season. Paris-Nice, obviously, that we covered. We thought he was going to turn into a climber on one particular day. He's got a great attitude, and that goes a long way on a team. If you're not winning, but you're just showing fight, you're at the front, chipping in for the team, chasing moves or trying to get in the moves, you're pulling your weight as a team member, and that gets you recontracted.
Every time the data pops up, it's 400 plus. It's normally north of 450. How much more difficult is it to produce this sort of power in a time trial position by comparison to on a climb?
For me, it was impossible. Whether it was on a climb or in a time trial, that kind of power.
Well, relative power.
But it really comes down to how long these riders spend in this position. And there's a reason the time trial specialists are so good at this, is they practice it. So they're constantly on their time trial bikes every week, doing efforts and getting accustomed or being at one with their TT bike. So that's why you see them really confident, and they flow through the corners really easily, and they're able to produce massive power, massive seated power like what we're doing Welshide here. The non-time trialling specialists, pull out their time trial bikes when they have to, because it's just a matter of going through the process for them.
Here's the big favourite for the stage, Filippo Ganna. He wears the colours as the Italian national champion. He is 33 minutes away from starting, so he is deep into the warm-up protocol. And he's done it so many times before, particularly with the experience on the track for the team's pursuit and the individual pursuit. That serves him well in individual time trials.
Yeah, well, he'd have his whole warm-up just dialed in, and just back to what you said, Simon, you know, the specialist and like Garner, that bike fits him like a glove. And the way I've seen him over the years in individual time trials, in Grand Tours in particular, and the way he handles the bike through some pretty tight corners or across some cobbled streets, it's pretty impressive for a big guy.
He's won 7 stages of the Giro d'Italia, Filippo Ganna. 6 of them individual time trials. Come on, ducks, get across the road. Why did the duck get across the road? Yeah. To get out of the way of Max Velshite, of Johnny Milan, in fact, this time.
Yeah. They were flirting with danger there.
They didn't know what was coming.
Yeah.
15 kilometres to go for Max Velshite.
This is a great point of view here, following Velshite along. You can see he's looking for the smoothest part of the road as he rides along here. He's obviously glancing really down close to him, trying to keep his head as low as possible, just looking up every once in a while to make sure he's on a good line on the road. But importantly, he's trying to find a spot that's the most sheltered from the wind and the smoothest section of bitumen.
So he went through the first time check with the second best time. Best time was Johan Price Pedersen, 20 minutes and 2 seconds. The slowest time through there at this point is Ilan Blikra, the sprinter from Uno X Mobility. And after just 17 kilometres, he's already 4 minutes and 6 seconds behind. He is flirting with the time delay. Back to the start house. Short bucks with a big, big chain ring. 64 teeth at the front. The Dutchman is the best of the time trialers from Pinarello Q36.5, and he's putting on that sort of gear ratio and taking off with that sort of aggression. He's got ambition.
It certainly looks like it, doesn't it? And that's right, you don't just slap the 64 on, I think, if you're going to have a mosey on down the coast, are you? You're going to have a real go. The way he went down that ramp with vigour gives us that indication that he's going to really give it a go today.
And how do you like this angle?
I like it. Good.
Shows the roads are a bit drier through this section as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, there's not too much shelter directly. So if there was any rain, the sun would have dried it up pretty quickly.
Nicholas Larson with a strong start. He's got the green light from Unibet Rose Rockets to go for the individual time trial. He's won world titles on the track. He's done a lot of racing on the track. A medalist at Olympic Games in the team pursuit. So very similar to Jonathan Milan in that regard. And obviously, he's out on a mission. The speed, as expected, is picking up. The average is now 51.7 for Velshite as he's through the second checkpoint. First one there.
Yeah, you can see those flags on the left there on the coast, just sort of coming across left to right. And as you sort of pointed out, Simon, it's just slight in the back by the looks of it and across the road. So making the most of that.
And Johan Price Pedersen is catching the last couple of riders ahead of him on the start line, with the exception of Max Velshite. Those two are fairly evenly matched.
Well, I assume the rider that Price Pedersen just went past was Frank Vandenbroek, who was the first rider down the start ramp today. So tracking pretty close to the time of Max Velshite. I'm not sure if Price Pedersen is going to catch anyone else today.
No, I think that's it. But will he get a quicker time than Max Velshite? Let's see it. The first checkpoint, he was 7 seconds up. he looks long on the bike. His handlebars are quite high. They're higher than they used to be, but with all the aerodynamic testing, they're improving the aerodynamics, but he has a perfectly flat back. Did you spend much time in an aero tunnel doing testing, Simon?
Yeah, I spent a bit of time in an aero tunnel, particularly when I was a part of Team Sky. And really, I guess you turn the clock back 10 or 15 years. It was only the leaders of teams that would spend time in the wind tunnel, or teams would invest that money into their team leaders. These days, I feel like everybody is getting wind tunnel time.
And Johan Price Pedersen, he was up by 7 seconds at the first checkpoint. He's up by just 1 second at the second checkpoint. This is tightening up between the big favourites amongst the earlier starters. Ryan Mullen, we've got our answer, Gero. Is he going to go, or is he going to take it easy? He's going to take it easy. He goes through at 1 minute and 32 seconds down. But it's still the third fastest time. It shows the approach for most of the riders early on in the time trial.
Yeah.
Well, particularly the riders that are sort of at the bottom end of the general classification, they've got no major incentive to go too deep today unless they are an absolute time trialling specialist. So all these riders enjoyed a recovery or a rest day yesterday. The sprinters or the riders that have dropped a lot of time already are taking full advantage of today's stage for a second recovery day.
Unibet Rose Rockets, have you followed much of their progress this season?
Oh, a little bit. Well, Groenewegen, as we know, he's already had some wins, hasn't he? And discussing him before, he's knocking on the door. So far they've impressed me. They've sort of burst onto the scene a bit, haven't they? And hence why they get their start here. And I think they're doing well. Yeah,
they haven't won a stage yet, but they've been heavily involved in all the sprint stages. And even without winning a stage, I feel like they've justified their invitation already.
Yeah.
10Ks to go for Velscheid. What are your thoughts on Unibet Rose Rockets?
Oh, most definitely justified their invitation already. Because they've raced this Giro d'Italia like a big team, like a big sprint team, for example, in the fact that they haven't hesitated to put riders on the front to bring back the breakaways or control the peloton on the sprint stages. They've been very present in the lead-outs with their squad, so their lead-out train is looking really strong. And I feel like their one sort of strong climber in the race, sure, he's towards the tail end of his career, I think, in the final season, Wout Poels. He is a possibility of getting up the road in the third week in a mountain stages and plucking off a win there.
Wout has been excellent. He currently sits in 30th position overall. I actually watched one of their YouTube pieces with Wout Poels today, and they're committed to Wout getting in one of those breakaways, and he's getting better. He's good in a second week and a third week in a Grand Tour. He's got all that experience. It's not beyond him of winning a stage, and this is his big objective for the season. This is the only Grand Tour where he hasn't won a stage yet.
Yeah, and he's totally capable. He's had some pretty big results throughout his career, so there's no reason why he can't get it. He only needs one day. Guys like that, they need one day where, you need a little bit of luck, make the right call, make the right break, have good legs, and then the rest takes care of itself. So, no, they're a newish team, but they've got plenty of experience on that team. Riders that have been around for a number of years.
Quite an interesting, like the riders they've signed at Unibet Rose Rockets. I'm a big fan of how they're developing this team, because quite often you get smaller teams, startup teams, and they'll recruit some big name riders who are towards the tail end of their careers. But those big name riders are kind of looking for that superannuation check. They're on the way out looking for one last paycheck, and they've really switched off, and you can see that in the way they race. That doesn't seem like that's the case at all with the riders that have been recruited at Unibet Rose Rockets. They seem all very motivated.
Yeah, even though the team is registered in France, it's a Dutch team.
Yeah.
It was started by two Dutch guys. One of them was a third place finish in the under-23 Paris-Roubaix and rode for the BMC development team. But the key riders that they've signed are Dutch riders. Dylan Groenewegen for the sprints, Wout Poels for the mountains. So there's some national pride, and there's some synergy in them culturally between the way they conduct themselves. And the Dutch, they've never been accused of stabbing too many people in the back. They go straight for the chest. You know where you stand, which is one of the great charming features about them.
Yeah, and it's just back to your comment, Simon. Riders looking for the superannuation check. reminds me a little bit of Intermarché, probably 4 or 5 years ago. Riders that were thinking, oh, let's just take a look at this.
This is Johnny Milan.
The car's got in the way. Well, it's had to dodge around the witches' hats, and no stress. He understood. They just had to wait before they could move out of the way. They did. No problems.
Lolan from Uno X Mobility, who they've caught.
Yeah, and so Intermarché were like that, Matt. In they're a great team, and even when their budget was a bit smaller and they were at the Vuelta, they had the leader's jersey for a number of days. You know, they were punching above their weight, and guys that we thought, okay, they'd be forgiven for just riding around on the peloton, collecting the paycheck, but they weren't. They were racing and almost reinventing their careers a little bit and prolonging them, which was really good to see.
Johan Price Pedersen through the first 2 checkpoints in front, but only just through checkpoint 2 with a 1 second buffer over Max Walscheid. The next couple of riders to go through have been more than 4 minutes behind. Lickera has gone through at 5 minutes and 44 seconds. That is a long way down. Back to the start house. Stage winner into Napoli. Stage 6, Davide Ballerini. Biggest win in his career. So often he's worked for others. When he won the stage, it was another dramatic stage. The rain played a part. There was a crash on the last corner. The team we've just been talking about, Unibet Rose Rockets, their leader, Dylan Groenewegen, crashed. And Ballerini, he was leading out their sprinter, but he also was caught up, involved in the fall. Ballerini got through the last corner, Macca, looked across his shoulder. It was just Jasper Stuyven chasing, and he said, now's my time. And he grabbed it with both hands.
And what was the wash-up from that? Because I saw a few quotes pre-stage, and then, of course, I obviously went and watched it. Watched that final sprint. What was the wash-up post? Because there were riders criticising even before the stage itself. Jonathan Milan, in fact, wasn't he one of them?
Yeah, there were a few riders critical of that final bend. Really, that was inside 400 metres to go. And it was like a U-bend on cobblestone. But it was slightly uphill. They didn't hit the corner with a lot of speed. But the fact that it was wet, it was damp from the showers that passed through. And I understand it had just started raining slightly as the peloton hit the streets of Napoli. So the sprinters were upset about that. The one guy wasn't complaining was Ballerini, obviously,
of course,
after the stage. But I think because they're used to, it's been traditionally a sprint stage into Naples for the past few years, and that's what the sprinters were probably looking forward to. And they didn't really get that opportunity due to the parkour.
Yeah, they've had a long straight stretch normally as well.
And Jonathan Milan was the sprinter who complained the most.
Yeah.
He was caught up in the fall. He's gone through the first checkpoint. Good to see the boxing kangaroo is at that checkpoint. They'll have to wait until the last 10 riders to start for the 3 Aussie stars, because there's 3 Australians inside the top 10 overall. Michael Storer, Ben O'Connor and Jai Hindley. It's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top in the WA Cup today.
Just going back to that sprint in Naples for a second here. Jonathan Milan was complaining, but I don't think he hit that corner in a position to win anyway. The guys that really should have been understandably upset about it, Dylan Groenewegen, crashed in second position.
Didn't complain.
And was the perfect lead. He was getting the perfect lead out, wasn't he, up to that point?
And arguably in a better position than that. Paul Magnier, he was in third position.
Yeah.
And he mowed down the riders in front of him. It did finish third, and he went up there so much quicker the last 400 metres.
Ethan Vernon now to start. He was very good on stage 1. There's going to be more opportunities in this race for Ethan Vernon to win a stage. Today, though, will not be one of them. There is one mid this week and then on Sunday into Milan. They're big opportunities for Ethan Vernon, and the final day into Rome, if, of course, he makes it. There's a long way to go between now and then. Back out on course with the former under-23 world champion. This is Johan Price Pedersen. When he won that individual time trial world title, Luke Plapp was in second position. And recently, Plappy's showed some good form. He was third in the Tour of Hungary. And importantly, on the last stage, he really took the race on in the crosswind. Yeah, wasn't that great? That was really good to see. Really attacking the race and attacking for the win, and prepared to lay it all out there. You know, to try and win. So, no, good signs from Luke Plapp. I have to tune into the next episode of the Stanley Street Social to get the debrief from Luke Platt when he catches up with Alex Clements and Max Gawn. Here's another Max, not quite as big as the Melbourne captain, but he's big as far as bike riders go, standing at almost 200 centimetres. He's well over 80 kilos, but he produces a lot of watts. 3 Ks to go for Max.
Yeah, this is a fast section of the parkour. Obviously, we're nearing the finish here. Inside 3 kilometres to go, slightly downhill, back towards the coast. There's just 2 corners to come, one, and they're both right-hand bends.
I'm sure that this chopper shot was to try and give us a look at the clouds off in the distance. It's threatening.
Well, they around this part of the world, it does sit there, and it could be the whole day. It'll be raining just 30 kilometres into the mountains, and it'll stay dry and sunny where they are now. It's deceiving, this part of the country.
Starting to rock and roll a lot more, Price Pedersen.
And it drags up here, so it's quite interesting. These 2 riders are on, they're going to be crossing paths at any moment now if they haven't done already, because they turn off the coastline, go inland for 2.6 kilometres, do a U-turn, go back down to the coast again. So that's why we can see the cones up the middle of the road, because there's riders going each way on this section of the parkour.
So when he sees Max going back the other way, I'm chasing you.
Well, I'm sure the teams will be keeping pretty close eyes on the time checks. Obviously have the intermediate time checks. There's 3 of them throughout the stage today. But the team will have a much closer grip on how these 2 riders are tracking.
So the last 2 Ks for Velscheid. He is an absolute powerhouse. Both his parents are doctors. And as a teenager, and he's chasing the dream of cycling, his parents couldn't quite understand it. You need to focus more on school, but I want to be a bike rider. That's not a job. Well, turns out for Max, it is. And it's a good one. On the other side of the road, that was one of the riders from Astana. That was Levens. Almost at the finish line now for Velscheid. We're going to get the first benchmark. Average speed at the second checkpoint was 51.7. Potentially he'll have cracked the 52 km/h mark by the time he hits the finish line. Handled that corner well for a big man.
He did. He went down onto the drops, but that's okay. Just to get a bit better handling. And we just got a real idea of the speed. You know, going in that dead straight line, we know he's moving, but as he hit that roundabout, he sat up sort of very quickly just so he could get a better position through that sort of bend.
Oh, the paint is etched across his face and so difficult. He stays in the aero position. Really hard to stay so smooth at this point of the race. He's been out there now for almost 50 minutes. He has been pumping out 450 watts plus every time we've had the check-in. 42 kilometres from Viareggio to Massa. Went through the first checkpoint. At that point, it was the quickest, but he was 7 seconds down on Price Pedersen. 1 second down at the second checkpoint. Now he's coming through to the finish line. He's avoiding the manholes. He stops the clock, and he is going to set the benchmark. One last corner before he gets there. Now the sprint out of the corner. The finishing archer waits. What's left in the tank is being poured out onto the road for Max Velscheid. Across the line with a time of 48.10. 52.3 km/h. How long does he stay in the hot seat?
Well, it was a full effort. Full effort right till the very end, wasn't it? We could see those last few kilometres. He was just starting to empty the tank. You could see the body language, a little bit of rocking and rolling, and then the full sprint to the line. So really strong effort by Velscheid.
And now comes Johan Price Pedersen. These 2 riders started the day down the ramp 2 minutes apart. So he needs to be here in less than 2 minutes to get the stage victory. The math is pretty simple, but how's the power?
Well, they've been almost replicated each other, haven't they, out on the course? As you said, Matty, just seconds separating them. Here he goes through that roundabout as well. So he drops down onto the drops as well. He'll make that sort of sweeping right-hand turn at this roundabout. Pretty straightforward, and then hits the kilometre to go.
And now the challenge, Simon, in the team car is to have the encouragement to get him going, but calm through the corners.
I think the approach to the corners will be very calculated for these riders and the sports directors as well. They will be familiar with the parkour. They know all these corners. So it's a matter of just reminding them how tight the corner is, what entry you take to the corner, how early you can be on the power on the exit. But they do have to be calm through the corners and then get them motivated again immediately on the exit.
He was up by 7 seconds at checkpoint 1. It was down to just 1 second at checkpoint 2. He's got one corner to go, and he is labouring. Velshite is in, and he'll be watching the clock, and he will like what he sees because Bryce Pedersen will not get the time of Big Max. The green is about to go to red, and it's in favour of the German from Liedertrek. Johan Pryce Pedersen, the under-23 world champion when he got the better of Luke Platt a few years ago, is going to have to settle for second best amongst the early starters. A good ride, but not as good as Max Velshite. He is at 12 seconds off the pace. Bryce Pedersen is in, Max Velshite is in the hot seat. The big favourites are still to come. We are 12 minutes away from Filippo Ganna rolling down the ramp.
Como que por supuesto.
Está bien, me hizo generarle una orden. Después de que ya le genero la orden, me dice, hay una pregunta, ¿el chilo puede recibir otra persona? Es que yo no voy a estar en tu lleno. Entonces, a medida que yo atiendo a los clientes, yo me doy cuenta de los brutos que son los peruanos y de las dudas también que tienen. A veces no es brutalidad, sino duda.
Nicholas Larson, the Dane track specialist, who's turning his hand to the road with great effect. He is now chewing up the road and catching the riders starting ahead of him. He's also been challenged by one of the riders starting behind him, Stuart Bax. He has been setting the quickest time so far. More of that at a moment as we see Timo Kilic from Visma Leasebike being caught for 1 minute by Nicholas Larson. Just moments ago, going through the first checkpoint, Stuart Bax from Pinarello Q36.5 has gone through with a time 12 seconds faster than Johan Price Pedersen and 19 seconds faster than Max Velschott, who has the quickest time at the finish line. Here's some of the key riders to come. Filippo Ganna, Mikael Bial, Remy Cavagna, Alex Segart, Matteo Sobero and Magnus Sheffield. The countdown is on before they get underway. The F Education Easy Post, the rider on that team I'm really looking forward to seeing in action is Markel Berlocki. This is Chris Juliansen for the Jayco Alula team. The big interest point for them will be, what does Ben O'Connor do today? Ben O'Connor is starting a lot later on. He's starting at 10 past 12 Australian Eastern Standard Time. He's in 8th position overall. Of course now with Ethan Vernon, who wears number 109. That's because 108, that number has been retired. Tragically, 15 years ago, whilst wearing number 108, Walter Wayland crashed on stage 3 and lost his life in the Giro d'Italia. And Macca, I love the way they have paid tribute to him by retiring his race number of that year.
Yeah, it's absolutely, Matt. It's yeah. What can we say? It was a tragedy. It was. I was actually there that day. I was working on that Giro. And at that stage, and yeah, it was a very sombre feeling at the finish line for everyone that was there, and more so for the teams and for that team, and of course his family. Yeah, but it's, you know, we never forget, do we? And we remember him each and every Giro, and we, you know, celebrate the life of that young man, and he'd already had a good career to that point, so it was. Yeah, one of those tragedies of the sport, unfortunately.
And he won a stage in the Giro the year before. This is Stuart Bax, the Dutchman, riding for Pinarello Q36.5. He's off to a really good start.
He flew down the ramp, didn't he?
Well, he certainly did, and on the ramp it had the little graphic on the bottom left-hand side of the screen with the gear that he's supposedly riding in this individual time trial. It was a 68-tooth front chainring, which is enormous. But he seemed to be pedaling it really well. So he's obviously not riding all the way down the cassette with a big chainring like that, riding a slightly different cassette at the back, where maybe he's riding kind of mid-cassette in that big chainring.
Paul Magnier, he's in the start house. He's not too far away from getting underway, but the big talking point, particularly for the locals, will be Filippo Ganna and when he makes a start. When you took the yellow jersey at the Tour de France, Simon, your team won the team time trial in Nice. Average speed was more than 57 kilometres per hour. Record team time trial average speed at that point, and stood for a long time. What was the gear ratio that you were riding that day?
I think I was riding at maybe a 54.11 on that day. Some of the guys in the team, Brett Lancaster, Swain Taft, might have had a 56 chainring on. That's pretty much standard course for road racing these days. These guys, yeah.
And very similar course, actually, on the coast. A lot warmer on that day, but in terms of terrain, very similar, wasn't it? But yeah, what does that tell you? Because we were talking about in the ad break, that time, I think you think it's been beaten since, but not by too many teams.
No, I think it's been beaten by a couple of teams, and maybe in a quite slightly shorter team's time trial. That one in Nice was around 20 kilometres long.
Yes, that still stacks up.
Oh, it was still a very fast time.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so what does that tell you about the evolution of, because, I mean, some of the gears we're seeing are incredible. It's like Team's Pursuit as well, the gear ratio that they're using.
So the record at the moment was set by Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe this year in Spain, and it was an average speed of 59.7 k's per hour.
Over distance? 30. No, that's the average in miles.
I'll get the distance.
We'll get the distance, yeah.
There he is, the big favourite for this individual time trial, Filippo Ganna. Looking pretty relaxed down there, chatting away at in the weight area.
It's pretty chilled, yeah.
As does Paul Magnier.
And he should be chilled too, because this is a day where he will not need to go all in. He can take it slightly easy today by comparison to a lot of the other stages that he's had. 2 stage victories already. It was 17 kilometres, the individual time trial, where that average speed was set of 59 kilometres per hour. Now underway for Paul Magnier. A very cruisy start for Paul Magnier.
Yeah, very leisurely approach here for the Frenchman. He's sort of taken a very relaxed roll down the start ramp. You can see there conserving his legs, but dropping into a nice aerodynamic position. So he looks good on his time trial bike. He's obviously spent quite a lot of time developing that. He's been part of this Steel Dog Quick Step team for a number of years now. He'll be quite accustomed to his specialised Shiv time trial bike.
Well, he's been the revelation for me at this race. A couple of stage wins. We knew he was good, but he was knocking on the door, wasn't he? He'd been talked up a lot early on in his career, and this was what he was talked up, that he'd be doing, winning stages and multiples. And yeah, so for me, he's been the real standout.
Well, it's incredible with Paul Magnier. We sort of talk about him as the revolution of this Giro d'Italia, and the way he's been sprinting is been quite phenomenal. But he's now got 28 wins to his name. So,
and was it Paul Magnier last year? He actually had more victories than Pogacar in the season. Oblique, not as big. His wins weren't as big, but in terms of number of wins, now you know the old saying in professional cycling: a win's a win, and his was still pretty good. But yeah, it's true. He has won a lot.
Here he is, Filippo Ganna, about to make a start. The Italian champion, he's won 7 stages in the Giro d'Italia, 6 of them in individual time trials. And look at the company he's keeping. He's equal with the great Jacques Anquetil, 5-time winner of the Tour de France, Francesco Moser, winner of the Giro d'Italia, and 3-time winner of Paris-Roubaix. And of course, the greatest of all time, Eddie Merckx. Filippo Ganna is underway. He is the pre-stage favourite, and with that comes pressure.
Yeah, look at the start. Just getting the gear immediately up to speed. Almost looks like he's pedalling almost under gear, Simon. And maybe that's a tactic, not so much a tactic, but a trend that he does. The opening couple of kilometres, just get the legs going, and then slowly drop that gear down harder and harder, and just keep building the tempo.
Oh, I think he's riding a big gear. He's just pedaling it really fast. He's flying. No, he's off to a really strong start. Yeah. And obviously, you know, you can't afford to give away any seconds in an individual time trial, particularly when the average speeds are so close between the top riders. But we're talking about Filippo Ganna and the time trialling specialists on their bikes and how comfortable they are through these technical sections. You watch Filippo Ganna, he just tips his bike over through these corners.
Yeah, and he's a big guy, you can see. Like, we cast our minds back to Valscheid heading through here. He's already just ripped a couple of seconds through those opening corners. Even if the speed's the same on the straights, he's taken time through the corners.
And his ability to be smooth, that has also been developed on the track, where he's our world record holder, team's pursuit gold medalist in the Olympic Games. Particularly the team's pursuit, to be fast, you need to be smooth.
Yeah. And just the way, and you touched on it before, Simon, you know, the amount of time he would spend on this bike, it would feel as natural as his road bike. And you could just see the way he was throwing it into that corner as if it was a road bike almost. You know, just so confident with it.
It is a really high cadence, Simon, particularly by comparison to Max Valscheid. He was pedaling at around 82 to 85 revs per minute. This is looking more in the 95 region for Filippo Ganna.
Yeah, it certainly does. And again, maybe that comes from that background on the track where he'd be used to spinning his legs at a much higher cadence. So Filippo Ganna, he looks comfortable on his bike, but you can see how much power he can put out, that seated power where you see him accelerate out of each of the corners, it's so significant in comparison to a rider who's not on their TT bike near the same.
This is Sjord Baks. It was off to a flyer. Went through the first checkpoint with a time that was 12 seconds faster than Johan Pryce Pedersen. He's now coming up to the second checkpoint. See how he compares there, particularly to Max Velscheid, who is at the finish line with what is the quickest time and an average speed of 52.3 kilometres per hour at the finish line. Max came through this checkpoint, 33.17. So Sjord Baks, he needs to get there soon. He's starting to kick and gouge, and he's catching riders who started in front of him. That's always good incentive, Macca, to give yourself something to chase.
Yeah, it certainly does. Just the psychology of it gives you something to chase. So he's going to come in still at the quickest time here. He'll hit the time check just as he catches his minute man.
No, that's his 3-minute man. That's the Australian. That's Jensen Plowright. So he has gone through and he is 12 seconds up again. So it's exactly the same time gap as he had at the first checkpoint. He hasn't faded.
No, he hasn't. And now he's just got to maintain this. And Velscheid seemed to bring it home, didn't he, in that last portion of the course. So Baks has just got to hold firm now.
Ryan Mullinan, the Irish national champion, cruising into the finish line. He couldn't possibly look any more comfortable, could he?
Yeah, very relaxed, even through the final bend there with the finish line in his sights. Ryan Mullen gently eases his bike across the line. But going back to that second time check for Sjord Baks, he went through 12 seconds quicker than Pryce Pedersen and 13 seconds quicker than Velscheid. So if Velscheid's come home strong, it will be really interesting to see how Sjord Baks finishes up or goes through time check number 3.
Now, Ethan Vernon, he is coming through the first checkpoint and he is cruising as well. So turning this into almost a double rest. That's not exactly a rest day, but by comparison to the amount of pressure that he's had on the pedals the past few days in the mountains, this is a pretty easy day and a short day.
Yeah, that's the key. You've still got to put a bit of effort out. You don't have to go maximum if you're not, riding for a PB time here. You're racing for less than an hour, and that's the big key. You try and minimise your warm-up if you can be really efficient with that, so you're not spending a huge amount of time on the bike.
Well, Filippo Ganna, he wants to spend as little time as possible on the bike from now to the finish.
Yeah.
He will probably have spent more time doing the recon and warming up. In fact, he will have spent more time in recon and warm-up than racing. This is now Nicholas Larson. He is through checkpoint 2. He's at 36 seconds off the pace. He's in 4th position. He's moving well. He's a long way forward in the saddle, and he keeps trying to push his way back every now and then. It's starting to get, not surprisingly, uncomfortable for Baks. Looking forward to seeing how his teammate Chris Harper goes when he starts much later on. Chris Harper is in 20th position in the general classification, and he will be starting at 11:43 Australian Eastern Standard Time. So he's got around about an hour and 20 minutes before he gets down the ramp. He's getting a fair way down the block. He's got a big chainring at the front. He's only got a few teeth at the back. He is motoring. And there, the cadence, Simon.
Yeah, and there you noticed it. It was at this same section that Max Velscheid was rolling on at 80 RPM. Similar power output in between sort of 450 and 500 a lot of the time. But Garner riding along 20 revolutions a minute faster with his legs.
Well, an old coach that I heard, an old Dutch coach, Macca, he had the expression, you can pedal a high cadence all day, but you can't pound the pedals at a low cadence all day long. The fatigue builds sooner when you're pedaling at a low cadence.
Yeah, and we've never, I've never really seen Garner, I think, pushing heavy cadence. He's always seemed to have been on top of the gears, especially in a time trial. He's got good cadence, well, what I call good cadence. He's just, and it looks at ease, doesn't it?
And there are the midway checkpoints on the left-hand side of the screen. The rider who is about to be gobbled up by Filippo Ganna is Cyril Barth. Frenchman for Groupama FDJ. I don't envy starting 1 minute ahead of Filippo Ganna.
You'd be hating that, wouldn't you?
It might be worse being 4 minutes ahead of him, because then getting caught from 4 minutes could be even more demoralising.
That would be more demoralising. You'd hope if you're the minute man ahead, you go, okay, well, maybe I'll get a very small slipstream and it might just lift my pace for a couple of kilometres at the very least.
And then the flip side of that is getting the opportunity to see Filippo Ganna in full flight in time trial mode. Now, that's a sight to behold, particularly when you are out there on the road with him.
Well, he's not going to witness it for very long, because I think Filippo Ganna is going to go past him. He's going to be very quickly out of sight. But this is a big advantage for Ganna. To see a rider in front, sure, you've got someone to chase, but before you catch the rider, you also go past their team car. So you get a brief moment of draft from the team car. Then you get a brief moment of draft from the rider. And in a few hundred metres' time, he's going to be overtaking Cyril Bath's lead motorbike as well. So you get sort of 3 different things to weave your way through if you're a rider catching riders in front of you. So think of Filippo Ganna, he might catch 5 riders thereabouts in this individual time trial. So he has a big advantage by going past all that traffic in front of him.
So then, given that Max Velscheid started so early, and then by the halfway point he had nobody else to catch and go past, a slight disadvantage for him.
Absolutely slight disadvantage. And on top of that, he didn't have time checks to measure his effort against as well. So the later starters, and it's why it's a big advantage always for the last rider to go down the start ramp, he can gauge, or he has an understanding of his competition and how fast they went.
And is this his competition, Mikael Bial?
10 seconds to go.
His last win was in a time trial. 3 years since his last win, that was in a time trial, and he's the 3-time under-23 world champion against the clock, the only person to have done that. But he empties his tank now, supporting others. Given the big leaders for the general classification for UAE are now out of the race, I'm hoping and I'm assuming that Mikael Bial has been given the green light for time trial day.
And I loved his pre-stage interview as well with Jean-Francois Quinet, where Jean-Francois asked Mikael Bial how Jonas Vingegaard was going to stack up against Filippo Ganna, and he said, well, I hope to challenge him as well. So he's obviously thinking about a result here today and backing himself to go all in.
His role that he's played on this team can easily be underestimated, particularly early for Tadej Pogacar, because Tadej used Mikael Bial as a reference point and somebody to learn from for the individual time trial, because Mikael's such a student of the individual time trial. And even though he and Tadej Pogacar are of a similar age, and Pogacar is clearly a much superior rider, Tadej has the humility to know that you can learn something from everyone.
Well, that's just another attribute that makes him the world's best, isn't it? Pogacar, that is, being able to, as you say, Matt, realise, okay, I can learn something from this guy.
Paul Magnier is the next for him to catch. This is not a weightlifting competition. He's not about to do minutes behind Mixter.
Tough survive.
He's still averaging 48 kilometres per hour.
Tough survive.
He's still averaging 48 kilometres per hour.
He probably could have taken it a lot easier than that as well. When you think about, he probably could have taken it a lot easier than that as well. When you think about that, all these riders, or